All right, cool.
Okay, perfect. All right, so let's get started. Hello everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the AIC section on statistical learning and data science monthly webinar. My name is Boxiang Wang. I'm from the University of Iowa, and I will be your moderator today. So before we get started, I'd like to offer a special thank you to Zhihua Su for her irreplaceable leadership as the past webinar organizer over the past 4 years. So this series has been so successful because of her dedication and leadership, and also because of the strong support from all of you, our community. So thank you, Zhihua, and a big thank you to everyone joining us. And of course, our success is also driven by the excellent speakers who share their expertise with us. So today it's my greatest pleasure to introduce Dr. Glen Wright Colopy. Glen is the head of data science and statistics at Polaris Data Labs, where he helps biotech companies take their first steps into data science and AI. Glen's day-to-day work is as a hands-on full-stack data science contributor. His focus lies in statistical machine learning with a particular interest in healthcare and life sciences. Glen holds a doctorate in engineering science from the University of Oxford. His work includes two patents in vital sign monitoring and over 16 publications. So most of his work are centered around medical machine learning. Glen is a longtime contributor to the ASA Statistical Learning and Data Science section. He has been involved since 2015, initially serving as the SLDS webmaster before taking on the role of program chair. He also hosts the data science podcast sponsored by SLDS and serves as a section editor for the Journal of Data Science. His dedication and contributions to the field were recognized with the SLDS 2023 Outstanding Service Award. So congratulations. So today, Glen will speak on the AI train has not left the station, but you or we do need to step on board. So this is our final call for boarding. Glen, over to you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'd say final call for boarding until the next call, and then the next one after that. So yeah, thanks so much for that. So as Boxiang said, I've been a long-term member and participant in the SLDS section. They've been good to me, and I hope I've been good back to them. Because they keep inviting me back to speak and things like that. Obviously, I was a lot younger when we first started, but it's been really impressive to see how the section has grown and come along. Back when I joined, it was actually called the uh, Statistical Learning and Data Mining section, and then they changed it to data science. So, nice long history, and I think this is probably one of the most fun sections of the American Statistical Association that's there. So, yep, we're going to talk about the AI train. It has not left the station, but you do need to get on board. Oops, I'm gonna click around. So, just real quick, as Bosiang said, my role, I am a data scientist and statistician. And as some quick background, I co-founded a company called Wildfell Software. And basically, what we do is we have two sections. One, we have like a software section that does lab notebooks and so like electronic lab notebooks for small biotechs. And then we have this other side, which is more the white glove uh, bespoke statistical and data science consulting work. And been a long time involved with the ASA. But that's sort of the context that I'm coming from when I'm looking at these AI tools. But today, I really am just putting on my data science and statistician hat as I talk about these AI tools because it's a little bit different thinking about these tools as a statistician versus as a software engineer. I'm not a software engineer, but I am aware of what's needed to put that into software engineering. So I like to lead with a super summary. And my super summary first point is don't be the stick guy. Don't be the guy who's on the couch. It's mixing metaphors here. When I used AI to generate this image, it was happy to mix the metaphors and didn't care. But don't be this guy and be more like this guy who I'm about to quote, Mark Ebden, great Bayesian nonparametrics data scientist. He actually pointed out, it's funny, said, it's not so worrying that he's on the not on the AI train. The problem with the stick figure is that he's sitting on the tracks. And I think that's a really good example of like, it's one thing to not be fully hopping on board with a new exciting piece of technology. But it's another thing entirely to literally be sitting in its way waiting to get hit. And so, yeah, I thought that was funny to say. There's actually plenty strange about this picture, as you notice, and I think this is pretty emblematic of AI and AI outputs. For example, if you look at the train right here, you can see that the AI train, it goes directly back as your visual focus would suggest, but it also goes out to the side and loops around and crosses multiple tracks. So it's sort of something where it was amazing where I was able to create this picture with about a two-sentence prompt, and it created that for me. But at the same time, um, it's also clearly wrong. Like it looks good at first glance, but it has some weird stuff that doesn't logically make any sense. And I thought that was thought that was sort of a good indicator of sort of what these AI prompts are like, what these AI outputs are like, and how we still need to contend with that and keep using them. My second big keep way or takeaway is that I think that getting started is more important than how you get started. So it's more important that you get going. And I know that's a little bit strange as like statisticians because we like to do things correctly. And but I don't think that's as important as just getting going. And so um I'm sort of putting it this way. You sort of have like three choices right now if you're sitting here listening. One, you can sit here and keep listening to me. That's a good choice. Another option that you have is you could actually go right now and log into ChatGPT and just start playing around with it, playing around with the tool. Option three is you choose an alternative to ChatGPT like Claude. Again, another uh, very common, popular um, general use AI platform, and you start playing around. And I'm not being rhetorical or anything when I'm saying any of these three options are good. But one thing I don't want is for people to listen to this webinar and then not go and try this stuff. So basically, what you need to do is try to go can listen to this to get some ideas, but really what's most important is that you go and start trying these tools out. That's what I really want. More than, an extended or larger audience. It'd be better just get on, start playing with these tools. You're smart folks. You can figure this out. Uh, the next uh, big sort of point that I think needs to be made is that the economic case for using AI tools is an absolute no-brainer. And that's going to be very important in our profession. Here are some quick screenshots. Look, I'm not shilling for these AI platforms. The first one is OpenAI's ChatGPT. The other one is Claude. I'm just bringing those up because they're general use and they're quite useful. They're the most popular. And I'd just like to point out that these tiers in like the ChatGPT, they're like the sort of the more professional tiers, like $20 a month. Claude is, I guess, $17 a month. Your time is worth more than $20 per hour. Like I don't know a single statistician or data scientist in the United States, Canada, or Europe who's earning less than $20 per hour. So using tools like this, you only need to say, you only need to save 1 hour per month and you are making an economic, like basically it's an economic win. And I'll get into a bit more of this later, but there is increasing pressure, for example, on data scientists to be able to economically uh, demonstrate their value. That basically you need to say like, are you actually pulling your weight? Are you providing economic value? Because the boom bust cycle of hype around data science, I believe, has come to an end. And so basically, and here's where the economics take place. And hiring managers and companies are more sophisticated now, looking at data scientists and figuring out, okay, is this person actually worth the economic resources that they take up? Um, the next point is that AI can do quite a few data science and statistics relevant work out of the box. So it can already do a bunch of cool stuff. And now I know a bunch of people were worried about AI slop and messing AI doing weird, crazy things. That is perfectly valid. But there's a lot of stuff that's still useful to our day-to-day workflows that it can already do out of the box. And it's more of these sort of junior partner and semi-technical work that's actually quite useful to do. And I'll be showing you a few examples. So like for when we get down to it later, here's a really fun example where um, a lot of the times when I'm talking to people, I just draw out what I'm thinking. Like basically, I'll draw out a figure and hand it over to them because you're brainstorming. So up here is, a hand-drawn figure. You can actually see my desk in the background as I drew it. And it's just a pretty simple plot. But the idea is I took a picture of this picture. on a piece of paper. I took a picture on my phone, airdropped it onto ChatGPT, and just said basically, here's this, give me the Python code to make this plot, use this library, and it pumps it out. And then in that same conversation, I can say, either basically run this code yourself. So it's not just that it creates the code, but it will literally run the code for you in that system for these types of tasks. And you can pump out, the plot. So I don't even need to bring up VS Code or any IDE to uh, to actually get that done. And then I can also do things like saying, okay, this is good for Python. I have someone working on R. Give me the R version, or give me the ggplot2 version, and it will do those things out of the box. And so I think that for a lot of people who are just looking at getting started, these sort of out of the box uses, it's not even specific to statisticians, although here's a statistics specific example. There's a lot of stuff, cool stuff out of the box I can do to save you time. So I think that's useful. And then also, there's more things I can do with little effort. So there's plenty of things where we'll basically have that Pareto principle, that 80-20 value. I don't think I've given a presentation to the ASA in years where this guy's face, Vilfredo Pareto, has not come up. But yeah, I like to pop him into presentation. So here he is in this one. Um, so, and for these tasks that do require a little bit more effort, I think one of the underlying themes is that uh, the reason that there's effort is because AI does make mistakes. We see AI slop on every day on LinkedIn, for example. We see weird AI slop emails coming in for cold outreach. Um, AI does make mistakes, and we do need humans in the loops, especially for tasks like statistics and data science, where there are a large number of considerations that, frankly, whatever the tech bros tell you and whatever weird AI hype there is, they're not going to nail some of these sort of coding tasks and data analysis tasks from what they've been trained on. So that's why there needs to be a human in the loop, a statistician, a data scientist. Now, of course, AI can do even more with these with further effort. So, for example, I hear a question about perplexity and coding and things like that. We aren't covering that today because we already have way too much to cover. Um, but yeah, in the future webinars in this series, Boxiang and I and SLDS, we're teaming up. We're doing a series of webinars on these various topics. And in the future, we're going to begin into like, here's a specific tool. Here are the tactics to use this tool. Here's how this tool compares to other tools. Claude to OpenAI, for example, things like that. And or I guess it would be Claude to ChatGPT. But the idea is we're going to get into the specifics there. Right now we're just trying to get to this high level, getting aboard the train. All right. So the next question is like, why are we even having this webinar? Why have this series? And the reason is, first of all, I think there is a need. First of all, we were having another webinar series on AI a few months ago, and we got some candid feedback from a lot of the statisticians who are saying, "Yeah, um, I've never opened up ChatGPT. I've never even tried it, and now I think I have the guts to try it." And that was a real signal. It's like, yeah, I think people just need to hop on board, and so it looks like there's a demand to help people hop on board. And just for what it's worth, I was 100% in this boat too. So for the people who know me, I'm kind of a serial procrastinator. Like I can't not procrastinate on things. I tend not to try new things. But the only reason I got started with ChatGPT and some of these tools early was because I was in a machine learning engineering refresher course to sort of basically figure out what skill gaps I developed over the years. And they said in this course, look, there's this new tool out, ChatGPT. You need to get on and see what it's doing. And so literally I was forced to use it. In the moment I was forced to use it, it went into my workflow. But I 100% would have been one of the people dragging my feet on this if someone hadn't forced me and sort of pushed me into that. So when I'm saying statisticians haven't even started, I can guarantee I would be in this boat as well. um, if it weren't for circumstances. There's also a lot of statisticians and data scientists want to brush up on this because basically, as we learn our new AI tooling, there's no it's not like there's a fixed way to learn these tools. And so I think a lot of us are still wondering, oh, are there some foundational or fundamental aspects of these tools that I missed out on? And for what it's worth, I'm 100% in this boat too. I feel totally behind on what there is, what tools are available and how to use them and how to optimize the workflow because they're constantly changing. And for people in this boat, you're in really, really good company because Andre Karpathy also said, I feel totally behind on AI and AI productivity. And I don't think there's a more respected industrial AI uh, expert out there than Andre Karpathy. And, he's basically of OpenAI fame, of Tesla fame. He coined the term vibe coding. And if the guy who coined the term vibe coding feels behind on vibe coding, we can at least give ourselves a little bit of forgiveness. And so, forgiveness, but we also need to push. And so that's sort of where we are. We're in good company. Andrew Ng is another example where he talks about how all the time he feels in the batch um, his email newsletter. He said multiple times, these tools are changing so much. My tool set keeps changing out. I still feel behind. And so I think it's something where we can sort of forgive ourselves that even the experts are feeling behind because of the rate at which things are changing. All right. The next bit is sort of the plate tectonics of our profession is so I think there's several aspects to this, and this might ruffle a few feathers, or people might be okay with this, but like for a long time in science and scientific research, statisticians have been effective gatekeepers. For example, saying, "Oh, this result is statistically valid. This is not. This result is worth reporting." Basically, we have a publication system that by a large part has just been based around whether or not the p-value is greater or less than 0.05, which doesn't even make sense as far as, for example, well, you don't always need to reject the null hypothesis to get a result. You could ask a good question and get a null result. And that's a very important scientific result to know. But things like, the ASA's p-values or the Bayesian versus frequentist debate, um, those aren't those probably aren't the topics that are going to be pushing for the next wave of scientific discovery. And if a statistician is expecting that they can just sort of stand there and say, stop, progress no further, you're probably just going to get run over by the AI train in people using other tooling. So I think statisticians have had a historical role as a gatekeeper in the scientific community. And I think that's less and less important now. Just quick examples like AlphaFold, for example. It's an incredible uh, advance in technology. It won a Nobel Prize. Well, it didn't, but the inventors won a Nobel Prize in chemistry, for example. And so these are things that are foundationally changing um, statistics. Um, sorry, I'm noticing the Kim's there. Sorry, I need to stop reading the comments as they go on because I'll get distracted. But yeah, we'll go through comments one by one. Yeah, so but that gatekeeper role is not there. There's another thing that's also disrupting it, which is basically the economic outlook of these roles. So back in 2012, a little over 13 years ago, data scientist was declared the sexiest job in the 21st century. And Thomas Davenport obviously is a very famous author on these sort of data analytics type topics. This was in the Harvard Business Review. And a scant 13 years later, this isn't the sexiest job of the 21st century. There's prompt engineer, there's AI engineer, there's all these other proliferating things. So we barely made it across the quarter of the century, and it's already been displaced. And the issue is that there was a big boom and bust for interest in data science roles. And so basically people said, oh yeah, data science, it's the future, blah, blah, blah. And people bought in, they spent big, and a lot of them burn through a lot of cash. And now there's the learning curve where management and companies are actually realizing, wait a minute, we need to make sure that these data scientists are actually worth the costs that they're inflicting on our company. And so data scientists who can actually uh, justify their costs and justify their role in helping the business move forward is that is a key skill. And I don't see data scientists being able to make that case for ourselves unless we're also using these newest AI tools. At the very least, you're not going to be able to compete against somebody who does use those AI tools because if they can just move faster than you. The other bit is statisticians are a capable bunch. I like to say that because I am a statistician and I like to think that I'm capable. And one thing that bothers me is I see a lot of very capable statisticians who they're feeling stuck because that first step isn't defined. And it's sort of a part of our personality as statisticians that we're trying to do things the correct way. And so we pride ourselves on not doing things the wrong way. But when the step is undefined, like how you start using these AI tools, there is no real correct way. You just should hop in. So I would reiterate this. It's not a dare when I say you can listen to me or just go out and start using those tools and come back to this later. But the idea is you do need to start and don't worry about being correct because statisticians are very capable. And if you can learn statistics, you can learn how to use AI tools. Um, So yeah, basically, I thought if you can define a uniformly minimum variance of bias estimator, you can probably learn how to use ChatGPT. Um, so there, like I think basically the skill requirement of being a statistician is ample for what you need to actually start using tools like ChatGPT. It's like Word. Um, and so what I'm going to propose is um, basically an 80-20 approach. Um, and one final why is I think there's a lot of common ground on this topic where using these AI tools can help you build yourself up as a data scientist. But also for people in management and looking to build data science teams, this is key to building data science teams these days. So I sort of like that slogan, the army of one. Well, now you're basically being like you can be a data science team of one or a data science army of one, where one person can get a lot more done. And I think that that's something where there should be there's sort of a mutual benefit between an individual using AI to build up their skills and what data science and statistical leadership should be looking at is ways to build up the skills and total output of their team. All right. Um, as a statistician, uh, I think it's important to state my assumptions. So we're now moving on to the next section. Those are some of the uh, previously we were covering the whys, and now I'd like to cover just sort of what some of my assumptions are when I'm talking, because it's no small task to try to figure out how we present new AI tools specifically to statisticians, um, so that they can start making progress. And this is my best bet so far. Um, but it is relying on certain assumptions. So when I'm talking about some of these, give further examples, it's based on some of the assumptions that I'm going to give here. Um, so for example, we are definitely in 80-20 mode here. So the 80-20 Pareto principle, that it's more important to get off the couch than to do some of these things perfectly. And we're gonna get a lot of mileage out of this meme, but the idea is if you can use Microsoft Word, you can use ChatGPT. And if you can use Microsoft Word to do some of your statistical work, which you can because you tend to type things up or give presentations, you can use ChatGPT to help you with your statistical work as well. So the bar is actually quite low. There is this 80-20 benefit. Uh, the next one that I think is an important concept is the Gell-Mann effect or the Gell-Mann amnesia effect. And this should be easy for statisticians to actually remember because it has the word Gelman right in it. It's not Andrew Gelman, but it still says Gelman right there. So at least the name should stick. And this was actually an effect coined by Michael Crichton, but he was quoting a physicist, and it goes something like this. Um, and I'll just narrate this so you don't really need to read the bullet points, but it's sort of the idea that, when you read the newspaper and it's covering a topic that you know well, you're going to notice multiple sort of absurd things that the news article says, or it's just like this literally doesn't make sense. It's illogical. the causal reasoning is messed up. It's non-representative. And it's just sort of fun. It's like, wow, I can't believe that someone so clueless would put this in the news as an authoritative piece of information. Um, and then the amnesia effect is this, where you turn the page and you start reading the next page as if that one's actually believable. So the idea is when you know that a topic well, you can see all the errors that are coming up in like newspapers and things like that. And then you basically, the moment you don't know something, you start believing that inherently. And I think that's a really good mental model for AI, where you're going to see when you start using these tools how ridiculous some of the things that the AI suggests are. Like they just don't make logical sense. And you need to keep that in mind because it is very tempting to believe AI on the things you don't know. So the moment you're just like, oh, I'm coding out of my depth here, or here's an extra piece of information that I need, or help me critically evaluate my thought process on X, Y, or Z, you see how it messes up on the things you know. It is messing up on the things you don't know too. You're just not seeing it. And I think that's a very important concept for AI. And that'll come up later in the some of the future examples that we give. So when you put those last two points together, I think the idea is that, your skepticism around AI is very rational. I'm very skeptical around AI and a lot of the claims that are made, but dismissing AI is not rational. And so the idea is we need to figure out how we're going to be interacting with this new technology, not just sort of wave it off. I think a lot of us who've been on the ASA forums for a long time, we saw we saw the dismissal that a lot of statisticians gave to upcoming data science technologies and things like that, where they're saying like, oh, data science, that's just statistics, or machine learning, that's just statistics, and then AI, well, that's just statistics. And it ain't. Like your Kaplan-Meier plot can't parse a PDF, give me a summary, and then transcribe it into French. Um, and like it just can't do those things. And I think one mistake that a lot of statisticians have fallen into, or anyone who's trying to just sort of wave off a new piece of technology, is saying like, oh, because I found an analog between this aspect of machine learning and this aspect of statistics, for example, the cost functions of machine learning that we try to optimize and the likelihood function in statistics that we optimize through maximum likelihood estimation, those are analogous. Therefore, machine learning is just statistics. And the thing is, it isn't, because there's a lot of other goals and workflows and things like that and priorities that are different between machine learning and statistics. So that's why these things, dismissing them outright as, oh, A is just B because I found an analogy, those things aren't true. And I think they're sort of dangerous. Um, the next bit is these AI tools, their purpose is to change how we work. It doesn't actually change the why of our work. So um the need for statistical judgment is not changed because the value of statistical judgment is what it creates. How you arrive at those statistical judgments, or how you arrive at those and how much help you get for different aspects, that can change, but the actual foundational need of statistical judgment and statistical skills has not changed. Um, and so um, basically, sort of the idea, a turn the crank statistician. There's plenty out there who, basically people who just run analyses. They don't know why it works. They don't know why they do it. Things like that. Uh, those folks are just as doomed and dangerous as ever before. AI tools will just let them keep on doing things that they don't understand. Um, but the statisticians who really know their craft and understand why they're doing things, uh, these AI tools will help them. It might change the how, but the why question and how you like and what the value is, that is not changing. So I think that's very important that the core purpose of what we do is not changing. We're just changing how we get there. And hopefully it's a little bit faster. Um, yeah. And so I had one more note, which is um, a quick example is just like AI coding is very fast, for example. But that speed is not the purpose of it. Like the point of, oh, this can code fast doesn't mean it knows what it's doing. It doesn't mean it got it correct. So I think that's basically there's still bits in here where the what the human is working on and what they're focusing on is probably going to change because they're going to have access to these tools. Um, the next one I think is especially appealing, especially to us older folks who have been around it for a while. It's that competent adoption is more important than early adoption. So the idea is a lot of us are feeling behind the ball because we weren't the earliest adopters of AI. We know some people who are, they jumped on it right when it began and they're riding the AI bandwagon still. And we aren't on the AI bandwagon yet. Like we're maybe trying out tools, getting a little bit better and things like that. But one thing to keep in mind is that there's something called opportunity costs. And basically, from an economic standpoint, the more the better you are at something that you've established yourself. So like a statistician who's been at it for 15 or 20 or 30 years, we've really established ourselves in the field and we know a lot about our field. There's an opportunity cost to jumping ship and trying something new because we're already adding a lot of value to what we currently do. Now, okay, so who has zero opportunity cost then? Well, people who aren't good at anything. If someone's not good at anything, they have zero opportunity cost. So they can jump from their nothing to cryptocurrencies to AI. They can do all these jumps. And so it seems like they're really ahead and they're on the edge. But the reason that they're able to make those jumps is because they don't have a stake in anything. And so I think that's an important thing to keep in mind that when when you see a lot of people hopping on a bandwagon, it might just be because they weren't good at the last 10 things. And I can guarantee you they're not going to be good at this either. And so it's more important for a statistician to be like, look, I've accrued decades of statistical expertise. I'm now going to take that so that I can competently adopt AI tools in the practice of statistics. That is going to be a better use of AI, and it's going to be a more sustainable use of AI than some Yahoo saying, "Oh, I know nothing about statistics, but now AI makes me a statistician." One of those works, the other doesn't. And I think if you take the opportunity cost framework in mind, it'll help you understand that a lot of people who jumped on the bandwagon early, it was because they weren't good at previous things and they had no opportunity cost of jumping. Now, of course, there's a lot of people who it isn't AI and machine learning isn't a bandwagon for them. They've just been at it for a long time. And those people are in the area too. And those are the ones who really know how to use these tools. But the idea is your rush to adopt is not more important than how well you adopt when you do it. And I think that's a good place for statisticians to be. So now is the time for us to come in using what we know and start adopting these tools well. And I guess one quick thing is again, um, uh, Andre Karpathy, Jan LeCun, Andrew Ng, a lot of these people are talking about, uh, how they still feel behind the ball. And so basically they are worried about competently adopting these techniques. So again, we're at least in sort of good, we're in good company with these giants rather than the good company of randos on LinkedIn. Cool. And the next concept is that basically I view AI tools as a multiplier, and this is just basic grade school multiplication. So the idea here is, and this is very pretty much follows from my last point about competency and adoption. You know, if you have positive productivity, if your productivity is greater than zero, AI is going to make it more bigger than zero. So like if you're going in the right direction, AI will accelerate you in the right direction. At the same time, if you are not productive, for example, the people who just run in circles and things like that, AI will happily stay with you while you run in those circles. The idea is like if with AI you spend your day banging your head up against a wall, with AI you can bang your head up against that wall 10,000 times faster. And that's it. Like basically it's like okay, you're just wasting more time, but you're doing it with AI. And then of course there are the strange cases of people who are truly negatively productive, where it's actually would be better if they didn't do anything. Like crazy Johnny down in the basement. They kicked him out of his cubicle in the software engineering team because he caused so many problems. So now they hit him in the basement. Give crazy Johnny some AI. He's going to create more problems. He's not going to become better. He's not going to become a positive contributing member of your team. he's just going to be crazy Johnny with AI creating more junk. And so I think that's something to keep in mind where these things are a multiplier. First and foremost, you need to be focused on being productive and being the best version of yourself. And then the AI will make you better, help you move faster, and make you more productive. But it doesn't change the fact that if you don't know what direction to take, anyone who's still clueless is still clueless. And AI is not going to help you with that. Cool. I had a few more concepts about general ideas around basically the sort of stochastic aspects of AI, how basically prompts are more about specifications and querying and things like that. I think that those would probably be better saved for one of our future webinars, just because, as you can see, I go off handwritten lists. I'm not that technologically advanced, but I think some of those concepts are more important once you started playing with it and you started seeing some oddities. And then it would be more helpful to go over there. So basically, stay tuned if you want another big laundry list of other important concepts. But the key one is we got to get started. So I think it's time to get started. And there's no better way to get started than seeing what AI does well just already straight out of the box. And these examples that I'm doing are ones that have been useful for my sort of data science and statistical workflows. So here, obviously, you can be a marketing agent and use AI, but we're statisticians and we're data scientists, so I'm going to be focusing on those examples because that's what I know. And so these are things that AI does well with almost zero effort on your part. So, for example, you don't have to be super smart, sophisticated. You just sort of say what you want and it works. You'll see in some of my examples, I even have typos in my prompts, and it still just totally knows what to do. And I think two themes that you're going to notice are that these are, or mostly are, semi-technical requests. So they're not the deepest statistical or deepest data science domain knowledge tasks. And also, these tasks are things where we're basically treating the AI as a junior partner in this process. So here's an example. So the most common AI platforms these days, like tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT and Claude, you can click and drag documents, drop them into the chat, and just start asking them questions. So here's one. I just grabbed one of my own publications saying this one's on Bayesian optimization for personalized medicine, and just said, okay, I need an article outline. So I know, for example, I wish publications would do this where they would just, the abstract isn't an outline, it just sort of gives a high level summary. But before I read a publication, one thing I'd like is I just have a skeleton overview of exactly what they say and where they're going. Because, just like people asking chat questions right now, you kind of are wondering where I'm going in addition to listening to me and sort of distracting when I'm reading for me to not know where the publication's going. So here's an easy way. I just drop it in and ask for a summary, and I'm very specific. It's like saying, okay, I want an outline. Give me 2 sentences for each section, and for each subsection, just give me 1 sentence. So just give me that real bare bones summary. And out pops the answer. Now maybe this isn't the most reliable way, but it is just saying, this is actually a pretty good summary where if I'm trying to boil it down to make a page or two to prep my brain for reading the full article, this is a quite useful thing. And I don't know any statistician who doesn't read articles, so that's an example of something that does well out of the box. We don't need to super prompt these things and do some sophisticated prompt engineering to get a summary like this because it's not asking for analysis. Um, Another thing that I find it really useful for is drafting. So the idea of like anything that requires, I've got bullet points, I need you to put it into human to communicate is a good use. Because if there's one thing it can do, OpenAI, for example, ChatGPT, its words might not make sense, but you can be guaranteed they'll sound eloquent while saying it. And so uh, and especially as statisticians, because I know sometimes like we get crazy requests from people. I'm in a consulting role where sometimes you'll just get requests where it's like this doesn't make any sense. And you need to be like, okay, I need to answer this question, and I need it to be polite, but I'm tired and I don't have the energy. So ChatGPT, here's my bullet point. Just make it polite, And so, for example, if someone's like, I don't understand why I'm sending you pictures of my spreadsheets instead of the spreadsheets themselves, and I don't understand why it's going to take that long for you to do that versus when I gave you a CSV. And you're like, obviously that's an annoying question. And probably if the statistician is left to their own device, they're going to give it a little bit more of a terse response. ChatGPT takes that off your plate. It's like, look, here's the bullet point. This is a longer processing. You're now creating a processing pipeline to take these images and convert them into numbers because R and Python don't analyze images numerically that way. So it's things like that where basically if you just need to bullet point things and get a polite draft off, I find that quite useful. It just also it's less mental overhead to figure out, oh, how am I going to word this nicely? If I can just pop in my points and say, make it polite. Another thing that I think is really useful is basically for repurposing. So this is, for example, for anybody who's using doing like SOPs, so standard operating procedures, or they have like tasks or instructions, or they're trying to repurpose documents from one thing. These AI tools are actually quite useful at being sort of a revision buddy. And so the idea is you might give them a context like saying, hey, here's a document for task A. I need the analogous one for task B. And you can imagine, like, for example, take that previous one where I just dropped my own publication in. And let's just say, look, this one's for Bayesian nonparametrics. Now I want to use this other deep learning method, and I want to figure out where the method works and where it doesn't. And you can just tell it, look, and by the way, the bullet points here are how I would approach the prompt telling AI. It's like, look, read the document and describe the purpose and assumptions. And I leave that as the first prompt and see what it says. And this is quite similar, for example, for AI when you say, show me your work, where as it creates, you ask it things to have it create its own context so it doesn't get ahead of itself. And then after that runs and gives the example, you then say, identify task specific versus task invariant elements. So basically, it's going through that document and saying, okay, this is specific to task A. This is invariant to which task. And so then you basically have it create a list. Now, it's not saying what you do with that list, but you're saying just create that list to begin with. Um, and then, okay, now for each item that's task specific, should we add, delete, or adapt it? So basically, do we need to add something? Do we need to delete it entirely, or do we need to change it? And then obviously for the last one, specify the change in the current wording. So saying, what is the current wording? What is the suggested text? So it's easy for me to go back and forth and change those. Um, and just for what it's worth, you could go further in having AI help you like update these documents. At the same time, this is typically where I take over, where it's like, okay, you have flagged ideas for me to look into. I'm now going to look into each one of these and make sure that it meets my standard. So basically, you can insert yourself or exit the loop anytime that you want. But I think that is a particularly good example of finding analogs. And especially because a lot of these tools let you upload documents and you can upload more context. As you upload more and more context and examples, it can get better at basically making the suggestions that you want right off the bat. Another one is actually first transcription, and I'll just add brainstorming to this. So this is cool just because basically a lot of people who did not have access to computer vision tools a few years ago, it's now literally a click and drag away. So as you can see, I actually write, I like handwritten notes for things because I'm a cave person, I guess. But here is actually my handwritten notes for this section of the presentation. What does AI do well out of the box? And the idea is, I just, as I was going through, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't forgetting something useful. So what I'd do is I'd write out my handwritten notes in the outline. I'd take a picture. I would pop it in ChatGPT and say, first thing that I want you to do, transcribe these notes. So you can see that it actually transcribes it, I think, pretty perfectly. So the image is my handwritten notes here. It takes about 30 seconds for me to get them transcribed on ChatGPT. So 30 seconds for me to take a picture, airdrop it onto my laptop, uh, change it to a JPEG, and then drop it in Acid Transcribe. It's like a simple prompt. But then from here, I say, okay, now have I forgotten anything? And it will suggest, and you can say, have I forgotten anything? And if so, where should I position it within this outline? And those are useful things. Now, do I take the AI's advice on these things? Mostly not. But every once in a while, it does come up with something and it doesn't hurt to check. So there's actually one of these where, as for a previous one, where I basically, it gave me a bunch of suggestions, and all the suggestions were good ideas, but they're for a different section. So I just said, like, so basically you don't use it. But for the one time that it actually does get something, it's like, oh, that's actually a good idea. That's a good point. I can start putting those in. So that's an easy way where I can get some feedback without trying to bother, having to bother somebody else or just get that feedback. So I think that's a good useful loop of doing things. And that's a big time saver. I really like it for brainstorming. It's like word association. Um, that doesn't mean I trust everything that it says, and it doesn't mean that I'm obligated to use its suggestions. Another sort of transcription example, if you will, is this one that we talked about earlier, where I like to draw out my examples and things like that when I'm talking to people. So like we'll actually sit down when I'm talking working with clients, like, okay, is this the figure that you guys want to help make your point? And we list it out there. And these are so here we actually have my picture that I drew. And by the way, I didn't game this at all. I literally just did this once, and here are the first time results. Um, and so I just say like, look, I drafted this for a colleague. I need some example. First, view and describe the image. So again, here, what I'm doing is I'm prompting it to say first, show that you understand what's going on. I'm not, and then give me some code. And I specify I want it matplotlib code, so that's a specific Python library. Um, and I even say I want the line plots for these averages in V lines, which is basically a plot type for um uh for for the other one. And just for what it's worth, we'll get to some things that you don't do. So what I don't do is just pump everything into ChatGPT because that's dangerous and silly. Like there's a whole bunch of information that you don't put into ChatGPT. But for things like this, and this is just an example that I drew up for myself to show you guys, it's useful. Yeah, so basically this would be like a medical example where we have a machine learning problem where they're predicting risk for individual patients, and we're seeing how the predicted risk of two different groups varies over time. Um, so this is a fake but realistic example. And so here it does, it pumps out the Python code right there. What's actually impressed me about this is I was looking at the numbers and it nails some of the numbers. So the idea is, for example, here, this upper, if you look at the farthest right in the treatment group, the upper bound on this is zero point 0.1 and it nails the zero point 0.1 thing. So it knows exactly what that was. Um, so I found it incredible that with its compute with the computer vision capabilities that it already has, it's really getting those numbers. Like I wasn't even paying attention, but it's getting those numbers right, which I find impressive. And again, I'd just say your Kaplan-Meier curve can't do this. Like this isn't statistics. This is something different. And these are very interesting capabilities. This is just impressive. Um, and they say, okay, now run that code that you just created for me. And so here, I don't even have to now copy it into my IDE or my code editor. It literally will run, and it created this example. Now we notice it's not quite right what we want. Uh, um, and here's something interesting. So this column to the right is ChatGPT making suggestions. So if you want it closer to the drawing, it's already noticed that it basically gave the treatment group and the control group the wrong colors. So I didn't even need to correct it. It was already telling me that. It suggests the horizontal offsets. So I actually have the picture, the original picture, like right there with me somewhere. Um, but the idea is I drew horizontal offsets in mine. I'll put this close so that they don't overlap. And it actually noticed and said, you should put horizontal offsets in the plot because it makes it more legible. I think that's important. That's interesting. And then it makes some other offers. But so I go along, I say, yeah, make those corrections. I give some corrections, it makes it, and then say, okay, this is correct. Give me the version in R. So it starts pumping out the version in R. Um, and then it says at the end, if you'd rather have this in ggplot2, tell me. So here's an example of how it like AI does and doesn't work. I'll be honest, I was kind of testing it when I said that. When I said, please give me the version in R. I was, you know, how in my version for Python I said, like, tell it in matplotlib. So basically, I specify the library. For this one, I didn't. And it's a little bit of a test because I was sort of assuming that it would just do ggplot too. Um, but no, it's used baseline. It just used base R. Um, and that's one of these things that AI will do, where it will it will make assumptions and proceed on those assumptions unless you specify. Um, so there's things that when you're working with it, you either need to specify or basically give it sort of system prompts or some meta prompts that say, if something's unclear, ask before running it. So I think those are the types of things you need to be aware of. Yeah, cool. Here's another really cool example. Basically, I don't know a single data scientist who doesn't sometimes need just some example data or to basically format data nicely. So this, I have to say, this is cool. Just went onto Wikipedia, got screenshots of three mathematicians. I pop those screenshots into ChatGPT and say, look, take these three screenshots, give me the JSON format output. Notice how this isn't even a well specified question. Like, I don't say what I'm using it for. I'm just saying, take this, make JSON. And there, lo and behold, it literally is like here. It has this JSON format that it's putting there, and that's useful for things like, for example, when we're quickly trying to spin up some example data. So, for example, you could go to Wikipedia, screenshot a table, pop it in ChatGPT, and get that sort of format so then you can create the table. Or for people who are sort of using AI to feed AI, you can now use this, and it's now well formatted so AI would have an easier time using it in the future. So the idea is a lot of the time when I'm prompting things like that, I will create more of a JSON format or use delimiters and things like that to help clarify my prompts. And here you can use AI to help create the information that AI can understand better. So I think that's pretty cool. Cool. And I have a joke about Legendre, but I'll save it for a later time. Actually, no, I'll say basically the reason he's grimacing in this picture is because Gauss took credit for his least squares um, discovery. So there you go. I think that's why. So the last thing we're going to cover are just these 80-20 tasks, where the idea is they are a little bit extra wet work. They do take extra effort, but they are worth it. And in the future webinars that we're doing, that's where we're really going to be hopping into specifics around these 80-20 aspects of like what doesn't work, what does work, and what tactics you need to use. Um, and the reason why it does take this extra work is because of AI slop. It's because AI makes mistakes. It says dumb things and it says it with authority. And that's why you need to have the human in the loop making these corrections. So the mindset I'd suggest is that you're basically a manager, um, where you're a manager, you're managing the AI, which is sort of like has this stochastic outputs, but it's over an engineering problem. We have two sort of broad topics. One of them is just in the interest of time, like context engineering. And the long and short of it is if AI isn't giving you good outputs, first write better prompts and give more context. Because if you give more context and clear instructions, typically the prompts get better. That's not a cure-all. And so when tech bros are like, you just need to always write better prompts and it'll solve everything and they'll have singularity. That's not true either. There's stuff where no matter how well you prompt it, it's not going to get your statistics right. It's not going to get your science right, things like that. But it does help it does help for many cases. And there's a lot of frameworks that we can use. I like CoStar, which is basically context, subjective, style, tone, audience, and response. Um, there's other ones, there's lots of frameworks, but it's nice that basically if you provide more information, and the beautiful thing about AI is it can help you write the better engineered prompt. So there are tools, and we'll cover some of those, where nowadays you can even write a prompt into ChatGPT, and there's uh, a little add-on widget they can click, and it will update your prompt so that you have written a better prompt. And that's AI too. Another one is on meta prompts. So meta prompts, so basically, whereas a prompt is supposed to handle one thing, I like to think of meta prompts as basically handling your workflows. And the idea is you're telling the model how it should think, how it should structure, and how it should basically engage with you. So you can give it a series of instructions and say, every time I bring this up, do this. Some quick examples are like young data scientists, if you're applying for data roles, I would suggest you set up some meta prompts to handle something like where you're saying, okay, Um, Here's my CV. I'm going to give you a job description, and it's your job to match the tasks, the requirements of the job description to the CV, etc. And now I need you to take this baseline, what would you call it? Um, Cover letter, and now I need you to edit that to make it there. And so I think things like that. I also use it, for example, for like my own client outreach. So I have in a future webinar, I'll actually go through some of the meta prompts that I use. But the idea is, when I'm talking to a client, uh, there might be a super relevant project that I've worked on that's relevant to their needs, but I've just totally forgotten about it because of recency bias and things like that. So the idea is I have some meta prompts that help me when I know what the client is looking for, or for example, I know what their different roles and the different things that they're doing in their company. I go and have it check to make sure that there aren't other things that I've done that are relevant that I've forgotten about just because I've been working on other things. So I think, and basically it'll help me step through and rethink about that process so I don't make missteps. So I think that things like that are quite useful. So I think that's it. Bosheng, I guess if you want to quickly, we do have we probably should have popped that in at the beginning because I know it's right at time. But yeah, basically, this is just the first of a variety of webinars. I'm happy to stay around and answer questions because I know, well, first of all, I took a little bit longer, and two, you guys have brought questions, so we might as well answer them. Um,
Yep.
but yeah, there's we basically have a Google form right there where if
Yep.
people want to hear back, and let me,
Yep. I will send out the information about the Google form through emails. So all
perfect.
of our audience should receive that.
Cool. I mean, I think using tools like that to take out the tedious work or to highlight what you need is important. Obviously, I'm sure your readers want more Paul in there as much as possible. So, yeah, I think that there's a good interplay there. And again, it gets back to that question about when are you using tools too much? When are you not thinking enough? So,
Okay,
appreciate that. Yep.
great.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Colopy, for the excellent talk and also the vivid discussion. It looks that AI train is now officially full of statisticians, and we are ready to depart. And
Mhm.
thank you for everyone for joining ASA SLDS monthly webinar. This session was recorded and will be posted on the ASA SLDS YouTube channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe. That's your homework. And our next webinar will feature Jordan Yang from Yale. We hope to see you there. Until next time, enjoy statistics, enjoy the rest of the day, and we will see you in a month. Thank you, Glen. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks everyone for showing up. I
Yeah,
really appreciate your
thank
time.
you. Yeah.